Hi, everybody. Samantha Magdaleno here with Thirsty Thursdays. And I apologize. I know I have not done a live feed in a minute. Um, so much has been going on with our holiday helper. Shout out to everybody that helped with that. We got about 1,010 toys so far for kids, and we are still giving out more toys. There are holidays that are the first week of January that folks celebrate in different communities here in Southwest Detroit. So we decided to give out gifts all throughout those holidays. So if you have not given a gift yet, there is still time. There's still time to make a donation. But besides the holiday helper, there's been just other holidays going on. I've actually been sick, so I've just been all over the place. But I definitely put up a post yesterday for Wisdom Wednesdays talking about this book, Reflections of a Man. And I cannot say how much, like, I literally love this book. One, I haven't read a book in a while. I haven't had time to read a book in a while. I'm a big believer in everything happens for a reason. So I've actually been sick and I was forced to be at home by myself with just my thoughts. And I think because of that, I was brought to this book that I actually bought months ago. I bought this a long time ago. And actually, to be truthful, this is the second one of it that I bought because I bought the other one and I didn't think I was going to get it back from the person I borrowed it to. So I bought another one. So anyway, I bought this book and it's absolutely amazing. And I had to talk to y'all about it today. So I am just setting up my other camera so that way I can see any kind of chats, comments. Feel free to post them so we can talk about them. But back to this book, Reflections of a Man. I recommend this for any woman that is going through a difficult relationship, somebody who has just gotten out of a relationship, or if you're just single and you're looking for somebody and you want to know what you should be looking for, what are red flags. Um, I know a lot of us get into bad relationships, and then unfortunately, when we get into another relationship, we tend to pick somebody very similar to the last bad one that we just got out of. And I don't know if it's just like familiarity or what goes on with that, but I know that that happens. I've done that before in the past. So I think this book really outlines what you should be looking for and what you should be looking out for. There are several quotes that are in the book that I absolutely love. So if you see, I actually let me see my camera. I actually bookmarked like several of them. Yeah, these are different quotes that I really enjoyed. While you're going through this book, there's opportunities for you to actually write down what your thoughts are, and it asks you like questions for you to like commit to. So this part of the book that I just randomly opened to show you is list all the reasons why you believe you should give him a second chance, and then list all the reasons why you believe you should not give him a second chance. Now compare both lists and make your decision on what's best for you. So again, if you are in a struggling relationship and you're not sure if you should leave or if you should stay, I've mentioned this before. What is trying too much and what is not trying enough? I think it's really hard to find that balance because you have some people that are in a relationship and they're willing to call it quits really fast and they're willing to just walk away and they're not willing to struggle and they're not willing to put effort into it. They're just like, I seen this one red flag and I'm out. That's it. I'm done. It's over, which I don't think is healthy. I definitely believe in having boundaries, but I think if you're in a relationship, you have to be willing to struggle a little bit and compromise and try to have some communication. And if you're in a long-term relationship, you're going to have even more issues because you've had more time spent with that other person. And so, of course, they're going to get on your nerves. You're going to get irritated. You've been with them for so long, but it's also not an excuse to just give up and to just walk away without communicating. So you have that kind of person. And then you have other people, and I would put myself in this category of trying way too much. And, the other person is not trying at all. They've done given up, or they're trying like this much, and you're trying this much. And a lot of my friends, my family, we fit into this category where we're just like, no, I love this person. Let's make it work. Let's try it. They didn't mean this. They didn't mean that. They're going to get better. They're this or that, whatever excuses. And we just keep trying to bend backwards to try to make this relationship work because we want that happiness that we once had, and the other person isn't willing to put into it. And if they're not willing to put into it, then there's no point. Now, if you have both, parties that are working on it, and I'm a firm believer in almost all relationships can work if you work at them together. I'm really big into seeing a couples therapist. I've gone twice with two different relationships, and they were great. Actually, three times. Sorry, three times. And they were, they had really good results. When I stopped going is when the issues started up again. So I would definitely recommend couples therapy. I recommend being open and honest and all of those good things. But anyway, this book, if you are like me and you are like teetering, like, do I continue going? Do I keep giving this person a chance, or do I just walk away? Read this book, and this is going to help you. Like, seriously, I had such a headache when I started reading this book. I had anxiety, I was depressed. The person that I was talking to, again, for like the billionth time, broke his word to me and just completely ignored me, treated me like crap. And I was just like upset all day about it, thinking back in my head, like, oh, but he did all this good stuff. And then now he's doing this. I don't understand. And just like all this frustration. And that leads to not only emotionally draining, but physically draining. And I was just feeling like absolute crap, and my head hurt. My head was pounding, and I couldn't figure out why. I'm like, why do I have such a headache? Why do I have such a headache? Why won't it go away? But it's because I was feeling drained from this person and thinking about this person in this situation, and not really being able to accept and like fully walk away. And so I started reading this book, and it was weird because I was on my bed and I was like literally just binge watching TV. And then I look over and I was like, you know what? I bought that book. It seemed like a good book. Let me just turn the TV off for a minute. Like, my head hurts. This TV's not helping. Let me read this book. And so I opened this book, and again, it's not just like a book, it's like an exercise. And you're reading all of these quotes, and it's a lot of things that and you're going through it and you're reading it, and then you're getting to these exercises, and it's making you be honest. It's like making you answer these honest questions. And by the time I got to the end of this book, I was like, man, I'm done with him. Like, it's over. I don't know why I'm like, and then I was like, I do know why. I do know why I'm like upset, and I do know why like it's hard for me to hold on. And it tells you why it's hard for you to let go without shaming you too. So I can't say enough about this book. Like, if you are literally going through a hard time right now, like, this is the book to go through. This is the book to read, that you won't feel guilty for walking away. I know for a long time I felt like, oh, if I give up on this relationship, it's on me. Like, I didn't work hard enough. I didn't try hard enough to make it work. But this like definitely changed my perspective and changed how I think about things. And it was weird, but like it did give me like that pass to say like, okay, like, I did enough. I did everything. Yes, I love him, but it's time to walk away. And yeah, it's I can't say enough about this book. Like, uh I love it. I truly love it. Um it's amazing. I'm looking for like the specific quote that I love in here. Um that really, really helped me get over, or actually feel validated in my feelings. Um It's in here somewhere. But yeah, so this is a great book. Let me pull up on my actually on my phone because I know I took like Snapchats of or snapshots of some of these great gems. Oh, here it is. Your broken heart. Does a woman's broken heart ever truly heal, or do you simply become stronger and find better ways to conceal the pain? You see, I might not know your name, but you can't fool me with the lines, telling me you don't care about him anymore. But I can see it in your eyes, he hurt you. Don't be ashamed of the pain, embrace it. Don't turn your back on the pain, face it. Let it all out and release it to the wind. And when you've gotten it all out, there will be just enough room in your heart for you to finally love again. Only a new love can help repair the damage left by an old one, whether it be the love from another, a spiritual love, the love of self, or all of the above. Only love has that power. Like, wow, seriously, like when I read that, like just chills like went down, like it finally validated all of the emotions that I was feeling. Like I gave this person all of my love. Everything that I had, I gave to this person, and it's not easy for us to give our love away, right? And I remember when I got into this relationship particularly, like I didn't want to fall in love with somebody because I had gotten hurt in the past. And this person was persistent and they wanted me to, love them and they were going to treat me and they were never going to walk away. They were going to try hard, blah, 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 blah. And, all that was garbage. So when I read this and it says only a new love can help repair the damage by an old one, it really hit me. And I know a lot of folks that when they get out of a bad relationship, they hop into another relationship really fast. And that's not what this quote is saying. Because this quote, like I love it because it says whether it be love from another, so yeah, you could have that option to go to another person or find a spiritual love. So there's a lot of people that after a heartache, because a heartache is equivalent to like a loss. You're mourning somebody, right? Like they pretty much died. Like that relationship died. So you're going through a lot of feelings. So people will turn spiritual. So to God, to Creator, to whoever Buddhist, whatever it is, they turn to a spiritual guidance and they try to get closer in a connection on a spiritual level. And I've seen that a lot and I've seen it work in a lot of people. Or it says the love of self. And this is how I got over my not the recent ex, but the ex before this. In 2019, I declared it year of Sam when I got out of this really bad relationship and I decided to start loving myself. I went on a diet, I lost like 50 pounds, I was working out, I was traveling all the time, I was out with my friends. And this was before the pandemic, so it was a lot easier. Now during the pandemic, it's a lot harder to do a lot of those things. But yeah, I really fell in love with myself. I wanted to work on myself. I wanted to make myself a better person. And that's also another option is completely falling in love with yourself and not really worrying about being with another person. Or working on all of those, loving yourself, finding another person, and getting closer on a spiritual level. So doing all three of those things, which if you can do all three of those things, I can imagine that it would be even better. But reading this, again, it made me feel validated in my feelings because in the past I was gaslighted by men that would sit there and say like, "Oh, well, you just don't want to be alone, you just don't want this and that." And they made it into a negative thing, like as if not wanting to be alone was like a flaw. But I think the thing is us as humans, like we are social beings. We want to be with somebody else. We want to be interacting with other people. Who wants to just be alone? Like there are some people that are content with that and that's fine, but there are a lot of us that, we want that companionship. We want to feel secure in somebody's company. Um and I think this quote is telling us that that's okay. Like if you decide to find somebody else, there is no there's no time limit. I feel like the guys that were telling me this were trying to shame me so that I wouldn't jump into another relationship. And I got it into my head that, like, oh, I have to be single for X amount of months or years for me to get into another relationship in order to be whole and to be better and all of this other stuff. But what I'm realizing is, like, I wasn't the issue in the relationship that caused it to fail. I wasn't the one with commitment issues. I wasn't the one with drug issues. I wasn't the one with financial issues. Like, that was the person that I got out of the relationship with. So for me, if I want to jump into another relationship or if I want to be with somebody, it doesn't matter the time as long as I'm ready and I feel comfortable. There shouldn't be somebody's timeline that I'm living by or anybody else is living by. And of course, this is also saying that you should be comfortable with yourself and with the person that you are, and making sure that you love yourself before trying to love somebody else. And like I said, you're Sam, like, I was all in love with myself and I'm still in love with myself. I got a little distracted and I did allow like a manipulative person to gaslight me and manipulate me into like having some self-doubt, but once you do that, as long as you recognize it and you start addressing it, like I've mentioned before, like I'm back in therapy weekly and working on myself, working on my self-esteem, working on my career goals and everything else, like you'll be fine. Don't let somebody else define you and label you as damaged or broken just because that's a reflection of what they are. So I wanted to share that gem with you. Let's see if there's some other gems out here. And Joe Gonzalez says nice, says a lot. Yes, Joe. This book is also great for men. um and it says it on there, if you're a man and you want to learn how to have a healthy relationship with a good woman and how to maintain a good woman, that you'll read this. Coincidentally, I really tried to get my ex to read it and he read like 2 pages and was like, no, this is horrible, it's bullshit. And that should have been like one of the first red flags. Like, this is a healthy relationship book and you don't want anything to do with it. But yeah, if you are a man and you want a good woman and you're wondering like, how do I maintain a good woman, this is a great book to read, because I know there's a lot of men out there that are like, I want a good woman, but I can't find a good woman, or I can't keep a good woman, and they blame everybody else. But sometimes it's your own actions of why you can't maintain a good woman or hold on to a good woman. And this is kind of an instruction manual, and if you can get an instruction manual that's only a 2.5 hour read, like literally that's all it was, and it's probably less than that, it's just because I wrote a lot, I reflected a lot. Again, I if anybody's out there struggling in a relationship or wants to get into a relationship, I highly, highly recommend this book. So I like this quote: a strong woman's walls around her heart. I love a woman who has built up strong walls around her heart. It tells me that you've been through some things, and not only are you a survivor, but from those experiences, you've learned how to better protect yourself. You've also learned the true value of your love, and now getting close to your heart is not that easy. If a man wants your love, he's going to have to prove himself worthy before you give him the honor of replacing that wall and assuming the role of your heart's protector. Um, so there's quotes in this book, and then at the bottom it kind of explains it by the author of what their interpretation is. So in my opinion, there are mainly 3 types of people who would criticize you for having a strong wall around your heart: those that are too lazy to work for your love, those that have never been through the lesson, and those that have been through it but still haven't learned. So I think this was great to talk about women that have walls up. And a lot of the times, as women, over time, we're like, well, maybe we should put our walls down, or maybe we shouldn't have our guard up so much. Maybe we should do this, or maybe we should do that. And I feel like once we start making compromises of what our boundaries are and what we want, is when we get into these bad relationships. And for me, I'd rather be single than ever being in a horrible relationship again. So I'm like, I will put up every single wall that there is. And if I find a man that is willing to take time and break through those walls and go through those things with me, like, he's going to get a great woman, because I believe that I am definitely a great woman. But if there's not a man that's able to do that, then I'm fine being by myself, because I have been an independent woman for years, and that's fine. And I think more of us women need to be okay with that, with being an independent woman, and we need to support each other in being single, independent women. And we need to not put so much pressure on being couples and being in, these relationships, because again, when they're toxic, think about toxic relationships. Toxic relationships are not just toxic on the two people involved. If you have kids, they're toxic to the kids. If you don't have kids and you have your family members around you or your friends, you're talking to them about it, all this negativity is toxic for them. So it definitely goes outside of the scope of just the two of you, and it seeps into society. It seeps into your interactions with people every day. Let's say you go through the drive-through and the drive-through, took too long. You're more likely to snap at that person and have a negative reaction because you're worried about something that happened negatively in your relationship. So I think maintaining and vocalizing boundaries from the very beginning and stating what you want and making sure that that person agrees to it is a great thing to have in a relationship. So, next, don't confuse comfort for love. Don't confuse being comfortable for being in love. Some of you are in a relationship because you are in love, and some of you are in a relationship simply because you are comfortable in it and afraid of change. Remember, just because you are comfortable doesn't mean you're in love. How to tell the difference? Ask yourself this question: why am I here? If you have no answer, or you have to justify your answer through logic and not emotion, then that's comfort. If you're there because of love, you'll know, because your answer will be an emotional one, and just thinking about answering it will cause you to smile. So again, I love this book because it gives you questions and it tells you how you should feel, how you should react, and what that reaction means. Are you staying in this relationship because you're comfortable? Or are you staying it because you're emotionally invested and you do truly love that person? Do you love that person because you feel a connection, or do you love that person because of the comfort that they're providing? So again, if you're asking yourself, why am I in a relationship? And you're like, well, he pays, half the bills, and he helps with the lights, and when I need a babysitter, he's there, versus saying like, oh, well, I do love him. He keeps me warm at night. I love snuggling with him. Like, we always laugh when we watch movies. Those are two very separate responses. And just a warning to folks, just because you love somebody and you have an emotional response, like when I answered this about my ex, I definitely had an emotional response, does not mean that you should still stay with them. And you keep reading the book and you'll see that. So the next one I want to read is Her Silence Speaks Volumes. A woman's silence is one of her most powerful forms of communication. It conveys emotions so intense that no words could possibly describe how she feels at that moment. If you find yourself on the receiving end of a woman's silent treatment and are curious as to whether or not you should be concerned, the answer is yes. Sometimes all she needs is a little time. Whatever you do, don't force the issue. When you feel it break in tension, sit down with her and talk to her about what's bothering her. Remember, don't try to justify your actions at this point. She needs you to simply listen to what she has to say. When she's finished, acknowledge her feelings and work with her to resolve the issue. It's not about winning or losing or who's right or who's wrong. It's about the two of you understanding and respecting each other and working together to move the relationship forward. A lot of the times when I'm silent in a relationship, it's because I'm done. I've already tried to talk to you. I've already exhausted. And I know a lot of women are like this. We send you those big, long text messages that you men refuse to read, and you glance at and you respond to like the second sentence from like the last and don't read anything else. it means that we've like exhausted. We've tried to say it in different languages. We've tried to say it in different styles. We've tried to say it in text. We've said it in person. We've said it in bed. We've said it at dinner. We've said it and we've said it. We've said it. And now we're just exhausted and we're not saying anything anymore. And when that happens, that's when, in my opinion, men really need to step up their game. If you truly love that person or you want to be with that person, you might have been playing this game where you're like, oh, she'll always be there. She's never going to walk away. Every woman has their breaking point. Okay. That's all I'd like to say. Every woman has their breaking point. So, men, if you're one of those guys that like thinks like, oh, I got this on lock, she's never leaving, she'll never walk away, we might stay for a really long time, way longer than we should. But trust me, when we get to that breaking point and we are done, that means we're done. And it doesn't mean that we hate you. It doesn't mean that we never want to see you or we don't want to speak to you. It doesn't mean any of that. It just means like that romantic part of the relationship, that part that loved you, that part that was trying to make it work, it's out of our minds. It's done. It's broken. It's gone. And you would have to go above and way beyond. And I'm talking about working harder than you ever did before to be able to get that status back and to get that person to have that same kind of love for you, because you've done so much to damage and to break this person that they've just given up. So please, when your partner is telling you and they're trying to talk to you and they're trying to tell you and they're like, I'm getting tired. Like, I think those are the most red flags ever. Like, I'm getting tired, because that means like I'm getting tired emotionally, physically, mentally exhausted, and I can't do this anymore. And it means that not only can't I do this, it's like I won't do this anymore, and I can't physically allow myself to do this because I'm tired. I can't. I've ran out of gas. It's on E. We're running on fumes, and when we get to that point where we're done, then it's just done. So make sure that you are not allowing things to get to that point. And if you did, work on it. If that person is truly worth it, work on it and put them first and prioritize them, because this is a lonely world, y'all. Like, I don't care how many of your homeboys are hanging out with you or how much fun you have with them. That love is nothing compared to the love that a woman can give you, and especially a good, strong woman. You can go a lot of places, but you have to be a man and be able to value that and be able to put that first. And if you're not a man and you can't value that, then yeah, definitely walk away. Walk away and understand that, you just weren't at that point. um Overreacting. So this is another quote that I like from this book. There is no such thing as her overreacting. The reaction is a direct reflection of how she felt at that very moment. For you to say to her you are overreacting or you're being too emotional is to totally disregard her emotional state at that moment. The reality is that she is most likely responding to something that has been building up inside for some time, and whatever just occurred was her breaking point. Instead of criticizing or disregarding her feelings, you should acknowledge them. Sit down and talk with her so that together you two can resolve the underlying issue. If you don't, the issue will not go away, it will only get worse. It won't go away, guys. I don't know how many people think like, oh, if I just ignore it, if we go to sleep and the next day she wakes up and I make her breakfast in bed, it's all good. It's not. You have to talk about it. And that will lead to the total blowing up and ending of a relationship. If a woman feels that she can't communicate with you, if she feels she can't talk to you without you exploding, without you running off, throwing a tantrum, going with your boys, running to your mom's house, whatever it is that you do, that relationship is holding on by a thread and you're breaking her mentally. And when she finally explodes, and then you're like, I don't understand. It's just because I didn't use a coaster. It's not that big of a deal. Understand that it wasn't just that coaster, it was all of these things accumulating and piling up. And you finally reached that point, and that's why she exploded. And it's not all on her you also have to accept some of that blame. So I know that some of y'all are like, oh, I just rather avoid it. I'd rather just like, I don't want to talk. I'm not a talking person. I don't like to like discuss feelings. That's a societal problem, and that's something that you need to work on. As adults, like we all need to work on different things. We're not perfect. Just because you reach a certain age, like I feel like we think like, oh, well, I reached 30, I reached 40, 50, 60, whatever age it is. Like I'm old now, I know all. That's not how life works. Because as a society, we're broken, right? Like as a society, as a country, look at all the crazy things that are going on right now that are like ridiculous. Like right now we're in a pandemic, people are dying, and we won't make necessary changes in our system because we value money over people's lives. And we have more than enough to take care of the people in our country and to make sure people are all comfortable, but we're greedy. So again, society doesn't always make the best choices. So we have to understand that as human beings that we've been conditioned to be selfish. We've been conditioned to live in a country where we're not putting our priorities first, and we're not taught how to communicate, and we're not taught to have our feelings, we're not taught how to convey our feelings. Like there's just a lot of stuff that we're not taught that we need to have a healthy relationship. So if you're in a relationship, you need to understand that you constantly need to work on yourself. You need to reevaluate yourself, and you need to check yourself like, hey, could I have said this nicer? Could I have said it in a different way? How could I talk about this? How can I do this? And seeking other people's advice that are good, positive people. I recommend professionals. See your own therapist one on one and talk to them. Therapy is never bad. It's never for somebody that's just crazy. I know we have those negative stigmas, but that is not true. I recommend anybody going to see a therapist because therapy can always help you focus, whether it's building a better relationship with your family, your spouse, even your career goals, whatever it is, it'll help you focus. Um, so making sure that you take that step so that way you're able to communicate better and you're not getting to those disastrous points where you're blowing up and then you're screaming, people are crying, you're throwing things, you're hitting, whatever it is, you're trying to avoid that. So this one hit me really hard too. This one's totally me. Hard for her to walk away. It's never easy. It's never easy for a good woman to walk away, especially after she's invested so much of herself into making it work. Just know that by the time she finally decides to leave, she's given you countless chances and debated the idea over and over in her head at least 1,000 times. She's exhausted, she's frustrated, and totally heartbroken to have to walk away from a man who deep down inside she still loves and is still willing to fight for. Often she will leave the door slightly open for a short period in hopes that you will come around. But if you wait too long, she'll be gone forever. So again, a good woman loves you. She's not going to just jump to somebody else right away. She loves you. She wants you to get your shit together. She wants to be with you. She wants you to have, a happy relationship. But when she's gotten to the point, she's gotten to that point. And if she makes you know, that first attempt, let's say you're living together and then she moves out, it's not that it's totally gone, but it is totally gone for that person that you are at that point. Now, if you come back and you do something spectacular and you're willing to change and you're willing to get your shit together, then maybe you have a chance. But you have to do a lot because you've been doing a lot to fuck up and you've gotten her to this point. So either put in the work or just leave it alone and let her walk out and let her find happiness in somebody else. And I like this part in the book because there's an exercise here that says list 5 things that you think were contributing factors to your past relationship not working out. And then the next step, now take a step back and ask yourself what role, if any, your actions or inactions may have played in causing the above relationship to fail. And then it says, finally, write down how you are going to change those things so that your current or future relationships have a better chance of succeeding and they don't end with the same results as your past relationships. Um, so I love that part. Like I said, this is like an instructional. This should really be like how to get over a heartbreak. Like I think that's what it should be, not reflections of a man, but how to get over a heartbreak, because it was just a phenomenal read. Um, Next quote that I really like. How can you blame her? She's been lied to, cheated on, and had her heart broken by a man she'd given years of her life to. He stepped on her love, violated her trust, and disrespected her. After all that, who can blame her for questioning the intentions of a man if she just met? Too often, we as men complain about how women bring the results of a past broken heart into their new relationship. My question is, who can blame her? I believe as a whole, too many of us look at the problem from the wrong perspective. We spend all our time complaining about the results and ignore the fact that our actions as men are largely responsible for creating the results in the first place. Remember, it's cause first and then effect, not the other way around. If we want women to change, then we have to give them a better past experience to pull from. We have to stop acting like none of this is our fault. Act responsibility for accept responsibility for it and change it. So again, this comes to the society as a whole and men as a whole, how you treat women, how you speak about women, how you talk about them with your friends, your family, and how that plays out in society and how women are treated badly. And a lot of the times you probably have contributed to some women getting treated badly because your homeboy came and hung out with you and he was like, "Yeah, I left that bee at home, she can just stay there. I'm not telling her nothing." And yeah, I told her I'd be home for dinner, but screw that. I'm staying out all night partying with you guys. And you guys are like, "Yeah, yeah, high five, dude. Yeah, that's awesome. Screw her." And because you high fived him and you said that this was acceptable behavior, this woman got hurt. And now, flash forward, she got out of that relationship. She's getting into a new relationship. But yeah, she's bringing in all those traumas from that past relationship because honestly, again, society as a whole, that's how we treat women is in a negative way. And most men are not treating women how they should be. So yeah, she's gonna have her guard up, and she has it up with um every right until you start treating women better and until you start having a change in society and change with your friends, things are not going to change. And she knows that. So part of the solution, it's hard for either of you to help find a solution when you both refuse to recognize that your actions or inactions may be part of the problem. It's a lot easier for you to blame each other for all the problems in the relationship than to accept the fact that your actions or inactions may have caused at least some of the problems in the first place. This goes both ways. In order for you to be able to find viable solutions to any problem, you both have to be willing to accept the fact that you yourself may be part of the problem to begin with. If you both take this approach and are honest with yourselves and each other, your discussions, which previously would have turned into arguments, should become more productive. That's because you will have shifted from a blame based way of thinking to more solution based way of thinking. Remember, the goal of a discussion is not for either person to win. The goal is to find a solution that works for both of you and allows your relationship to move forward in a positive direction. So this is a big one. A lot of relationships, when you get into arguments, you're always trying to be right. And I've always carried this lesson with me, like, what do you gain out of being right? Would you rather be right or be happy? You don't always have to be right in an argument. Sometimes you can just let it go, or you can just see that the other person's point of view, like, "Oh, okay, this is how you think, this is how I think. We don't see eye to eye on this, but that's okay." But if you're in a relationship and the other person never says sorry, doesn't accept accountability for anything, or they're one of those types of people that are like, yeah, it's all my fault. And then when you're like, okay, well, what's your fault? And they're like, oh, I don't know. Or if you start telling them, like, yeah, you're right, like, you always run away, you always do this, and then they're like, oh, but it's your fault that I, and then they're not really taking any kind of accountability, that's not a good relationship to be in at all. Trust me. You need to be able to know that you're in a relationship with an adult that is able to articulate and able to have conversations and able to accept their accountability, because it definitely takes two, the relationships are both ways. So it's not always going to be like, oh, the fail of the relationship was just on one person. It's always going to be on both people. But both people should be able to accept and say sorry, and not just say sorry, but also take accountability and take steps to make it up to that other person. So the last quote that I really like from this book: a good woman's true love. When a woman truly loves a man, the only person who can mess that up is that man himself. A woman's true love for man is foolproof. She'll be with her man, side by side with her man through anything and everything. If that ever changes, it's most often based on something he did or did not do, because no one else has the power, not her friends, not her family, no one. No one has the power to change a woman's true love for her man except the man that she truly loves. So again, that comes back to this accountability factor of, you're in a relationship, you found this great, awesome partner, you love them, and you made them fall head over heels for you. They're in love with you, but then you started taking them for granted. And you started having in your mind that they'll always be there, they'll never leave you, and all of these other things. And now they've gotten to the point where they have left you, and you want to start blaming everybody, right? You want to start saying like, oh, well, her mom was always talking crap, her sister didn't like me, her friends this, her friends that, and you want to start like blaming everybody else in the world for the things that you didn't do. Remember, you were in this relationship for however X months, weeks, years, whatever it was. And she clearly articulated to you, because us women, usually that's one thing we do know how to do. We know how to communicate. And we all have different styles of communication, whether it's direct communication, it's passive aggressive, whatever it is. She communicated to you that she wasn't happy. And you either ignored them, the signs, or you just didn't care to change. You heard them and didn't care to change. And that's why she left. So these are just a little bit of tidbits. Like I said, if you find yourself in a relationship that you're questioning, or if you just went through a heartbreak, this book, Reflections of a Man, again, I think it should be called Guide to Getting Over a Heartbreak, honestly, or Guide to Repairing Your Relationship. It can go either way. Because if you can get a man to really look at this, follow this, and he's been messing up, but then he reads this and is like, man, I need to do a lot of things different, and starts following the guidelines, I'm very confident that you can repair your relationship. And again, I think any relationship can really be repaired if both people are willing to work on it. No matter what you have gone through, what past things, as long as you're both willing to work on yourselves and then work on the relationship together, I believe that most relationships, if not all relationships, can definitely be repaired. Um but you just need to find somebody that, that you're in love with and that you're willing to make that work with. And no partnership is going to be perfect. you know you're always going to have your issues, you're always going to have your breakdowns. But again, I know that this is pandemic time and it's hard to be single during COVID times, and heartbreaks, I feel like they hit so much harder during COVID, because just of the craziness of the pandemic and everything else that is going on. So if you're going through this kind of issues, read this book. I'm so serious. It's like $10. I'm not getting paid to say this. I have no idea who this author is or anything about Mr. Amari Soul. That's who it's by. I'm not being paid, but definitely, I'm telling you, I read this. I had the biggest headache of my life. I couldn't like see straight, I couldn't think straight, and then all of a sudden I start reading this and going through these things, and it just made me think like, wow, like I'm putting all of this, I'm doing all of these things, uh and I'm pouring all of it into somebody that is not willing to even lift up a glass. Like not even just pour into me, like this person won't even open, like put out the glass for me to pour into. Not making any kind of effort, and I'm sitting here trying to make it work based on, this feeling of love, but I'm being disrespected. And once you're disrespected in a relationship and the person is continuously disrespecting you, there's no saving that relationship. They're not going to change. And it's better to be single and alone and learning how to love yourself than being in a relationship where you're made to feel alone and you're made to feel like you're really by yourself. How many of us have been in those situations, ladies, where we're afraid to ask our man to do something for us? Like, we shouldn't be afraid to ask him, and especially when it's small, certain stuff. And I know that if you've ever been in a bad relationship, you can relate to that feeling where you're like, "Oh, I wanna ask him to give me a ride here, but I know he's gonna get irritated. I know he's gonna get mad." Like, that's your partner. Like, you should be able to rely on that person. And if it's switched around and he asks you, to go to the ends of the earth, you're like, "Okay, I'll leave right now." Like, and you're willing to go above and beyond for this person, and you have gone above and beyond for this person, but you're afraid to ask them for anything small, then there's something wrong in the relationship. And just because they're validated by their friends that are also toxic, and they tell them like, "Oh, she's the problem, it's not you." Like, don't even worry about that stuff. Honestly, don't worry about that stuff. Those kind of miserable people are going to stay miserable. A quote that I liked from my grandparents growing up is misery loves company. So your ex is going to be miserable with other miserable people. And no matter how much they try to post on social media or they try to say that they're super happy, deep down inside, they're not. And you should honestly not worry about that. Don't worry. And if that person is happy, then be happy that they're happy, and be happy that they're not making you miserable anymore. Like, that's the most important part. Like, when you are in a bad relationship, they're making you miserable. And when they start making you more miserable than they make you happy, that's when it's time to go. And if you keep trying to hold on to those like little glimpses of like, well, it was happy at this point and he was making me happy at that point, so I want to get that back. If that person was capable of doing that before, then they're capable of doing it now. And if they're not doing it now, it's because they're making a conscious decision that they don't respect you enough to make you happy at this point, and they're not trying. And again, it's time to just move on. It's time to go. So that is Thirsty Thursday. Tomorrow is Film and Food Friday. I am not sure if we're gonna do Film and Food Friday. I have to think about it. Um, Maybe if somebody brings me like some Indian food. I've been having a major craving. Oh, but tomorrow's a holiday, so yeah, people might not want to do it on the holiday. I'm gonna be stuck inside. I'm stuck at home, quarantined for 2 weeks, but after Film and Food Friday, we have Shit Happens Saturday, Self Care Sundays, Moody Mondays, Tuesdays, Travel Tips Tuesdays, and then back to Wisdom Wednesdays, and then Thirsty Thursdays. And like I said, I am working on getting on a more consistent schedule for these. I hope that you're enjoying them. I hope everybody that tunes in can get a little bit of advice that works for them and a little bit of a gem. If you have any comments or you have any questions, feel free to post it in the comments or to personally message me. I always appreciate all the messages that I get, especially when I'm helping people out and they want to just say, like, I learned this or this helped me. And if you get this book and you read it, let me know. I'm so serious. Like, this book changed me. Like, honestly, I was feeling so miserable yesterday, such a huge headache. And then I just read it and everything was clear. And I feel so much better. And today I made steps to make changes in my life to get me on a more positive path. and I'm really happy about it. So definitely a life changer. So I appreciate everybody for tuning in. Have a good night. Please stay safe. COVID is going around. Everybody has it. This is crazy times. So please stay safe. If you're going out, wear a mask. Vaccinated or not, like this virus is not caring. So if you're a person that's like, oh, well, I have the vaccine and it doesn't matter, it really it does matter. Like you having the vaccine, like you should still wear a mask because everybody's out there getting it. So make sure that you're staying safe, you're staying healthy. Thank you for tuning in. I really appreciate it, y'all. Have a good night.